Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, in this special session and a special address we have from Mr. J. Satyanarayanan. In fact, if I can say, the doyen of the IT sector, the brainchild of NIC. In fact, he created the National Informatics Center, the brainchild of Digital India and Aadhaar. He's been the former Secretary Health of Andhra Pradesh, and yes, the Secretary IT, former Secretary IT. So what we are talking about, having this integrated health system, collation of the health records, and how it is going to be helping us towards bringing in cost and operational efficiency, towards also the early detection, early treatment, development of medicine. All that is going to be possible once we have the national health stack, and then interlinking it with Aadhaar. So more on that, we would like to learn from the doyen himself, inviting Mr. J. Satyanarayanan, the chairman of UIDAI, the nodal agency towards the execution and implementation of Aadhaar.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's always very big challenge to address a conference post-lunch. But thanks to the yoga intervention, we must thank the yoga guru. We must have got some kind of a energy and also shaken off our sleep. What I'm going to do, can you please show up the presentation, please? I'm not going to talk about Aadhaar as such, but the topic is going to be on National Digital Health Mission that we have suggested. I'm currently chairing a national committee on the health systems in the country, how to streamline the whole thing. And we have heard a lot of eminent speakers in the panel just before lunch. The kind of problems, while there is a tremendous power in data, a tremendous power in the information, how do you leverage, how do you extract that power? Several challenges have been mentioned in different country contexts. But when you put it in the context of India, really it is a question of, again, a scale of unheard of dimensions. For instance, we have 1.23 billion Aadhaars issued in this country, 1.23 billion. Digital identity available online with biometrics. That is the size of the population, that is the size of our need and the kind of services that we are giving. So in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to, can you please put that slide back, please? Yeah. So what I mentioned here is taken from the National Health Policy 2017. The vision is to create health and wellness for all, is the slogan of 2017 policy on health. So how is it possible? By using the concept of digital health. This is, I put a caveat saying that it's work in process. Our committee has almost completed its work over the last 3 months. We are on the verge of submitting it to the Government of India for its approval and processing. So it's still work in process, it may be taken that way. So if you see the policy as such, which is the driving force or the guidance for us in this committee, digital health is a very important part of that, but all the same we need to know the whole spectrum of expectations, aspirations of the national health policy. I have picked up a key ones, which is health and wellness for all and at all ages is important. That it's a very long journey you are making with a digital health record. Better access, quality, citizen sensitivity, performance of institutions, performance of professionals need to be known, and from silos to holistic health ecosystem is a very key thing for the architecture that I'm going to talk about. Right? We have seen the problems of silos. Several speakers illustrated it in the previous session as such. Then it's not as if we are not giving electronic services to the people in the health sector. We are not starting with a clean slate. A lot of services are there, but they are in the era of electronics, but we are in the era of digital, technology. So how do you migrate? How do you migrate to that situation? Integrated digital health services. And continuum of care is another concept which is advocated by the National Health Policy 17. Lastly, these are all words taken from the policy of 2017, not invented by this committee as such. So how are we going to realize all these aspirations through an appropriate architectural approach? So there are two big pillars here for NHB. One is on the wellness side. From disease management point of view, one should move or gravitate towards wellness. Wellness should be the, driving the whole ecosystem. So wellness on the other side, and on the disease management side, we have this PMJAY. We have seen a presentation on this program, that is the universal health coverage for all, up to 500,000 rupees. So the foundation for this is the National Digital Health Mission, which we have proposed in this committee. So let me go into a little bit of detail on this mission. What does it say? This is the vision that is drafted for that, and the keywords which are in the green. It's an ecosystem that we are talking about. It's not a system. It is an ecosystem. For instance, Aadhaar is not a system. Aadhaar is an ecosystem in this country today. It touches so many other sectors and interfaces with so many systems. So it is the ecosystem that we need to build for this country. Building a single system in whatever kind of technology is just not possible. So it is the ecosystem that we are planning at this point of time. Universal health coverage, security, confidentiality and privacy of the information. In fact, Mr. Ajay Sahani is going to talk exclusively on this in the next session, I am told. So these are all the things that need to be taken care of by the framework that we have suggested. How are we going to do that? This is the overview of the ecosystem that I talked about earlier. It's a layered, it's like an onion layer format that we have. At the heart of it, core of it is the principles. They are kind of not prescriptive, they are guidelines. There are a set of building blocks we have identified as a second layer, which are standards based. Then over and above that, the actual standards and regulation that need to be complied with all the ecosystem players. Fourth layer on top of that is the applications, and finally the services that reach the citizens and various other stakeholders in the system. So this 5-layer system is what we have designed as part of this National Digital Health Blueprint, we are calling it. And on top of that, how do you, the idea is fine. How are you going to implement the whole thing in such a large country like India with such diverse needs and such large population? So we need an institutional structure to manage the whole thing. Roughly on the lines of NHS Digital UK, we have studied extensively the work done on NHS in UK over the last 2 decades and derived some good lessons from that. We built all that into this framework as such. So let me spend a minute each on these layers each of these layers, starting with, the principles. So once the common principles are understood by all the players across the country, it becomes that much easy. So we have two kinds of principles. One is the domain principles, which are more strongly related to the health domain. They don't have any technology color or technology flavor to them, which is very, clear that you need to have universal, you have to be inclusive, including the far-flung areas, the poor and downtrodden people in this country. Security, privacy, by design. During the lunch, we had a very interesting brief conversation, though, with Don and I were sitting at the same table. So, we said that Aadhaar was designed with privacy and security by design on day one. So likewise for the health systems as well, when you are doing it in this manner, by design. Performance, accountability, portability. Anywhere in this country, people should get the same level and quality of care as instantaneously as it is happening in the native place. And very good principle which we have followed in several large projects is think big, start small, scale fast, is a principle that we have advocated in this. And also educate and empower. On the other side, we have a set of technology principles which are equally important. So the domain is important, technology is also important here. So in the middle is the architecture, which has all these building blocks, open APIs. Then leveraging the legacy. It's not as if we have a clean slate. It's good and bad. It's good to have clean slate sometimes. So, but here is a case where number of programs are already going on. How do you take them on board? Then very important thing is minimalistic approach. Go for only the minimum footprint that is needed, not the maximum footprint, just to impress. Whatever minimum requirement, minimum viable architecture as they call. So we adapted that principle as well in this. And single source of truth, very important. If an electronic health record has to be, useful for several of the stakeholders, irrespective of the place in India or the institution where it is located, you need to have single source of truth on some areas. What are those areas where you need single source of truth? We have identified them and put them in the report. Then interoperability, of course, end of the day. How do you ensure the whole thing? So these principles, 12 principles, guided the rest of the work of the committee, and we have come up with the report. And I talked about as a second layer, the blocks. About 20 building blocks is what all it takes for a whole country like India, large country like India, complex, diverse country like India. If you are able to put these 20 blocks in place, you are there. You can do a lot of wonders. So it is again if I go into each one of those blocks or even those layers, it takes probably the rest of the evening. So I will not do that, but say that it's a layered kind of list of blocks. 5 layers: infrastructure layer, data hubs, technology building blocks, pure play technology building blocks, and then the application, and so on. So this is one approach, once you standardize around these 20 building blocks, you are there. The rest of the ecosystem can use or imitate or clone, whatever they can do with these, conform to these building blocks and go forward, right? There is a tremendous 1,000 different directions people can work, but still on the same tune, they sing the same tune, right? Doesn't matter. So this is what we have, and we have given detail of each one of those blocks. What does each block do? What is its capability? Do's and don'ts for that block we have given, so on. So this is the kind of a main picture or the heart of the digital health architecture that we have recommended here. And second, of course, there is a little bit confusion because of the change of fonts here. But broadly, this tries to map, what is it for me as a stakeholder? What is it in this big thing called NDHM? What does it offer to me? So this is stakeholder view of all the various kinds of services. We have again seen NHS UK, which comes nearest to our expectation requirement, and derived some of those services from what NHS is offering in UK. So putting all that together, about 30 odd services and benefits from the stakeholders' point of view is documented in the report as such. Again, I'm not going into details. Whether it is citizen, service provider, technology service provider, support service provider like insurance companies, or public health institutions, there is something in this report for everybody to follow. And lastly, the standards. Again, we have adopted, I'm thankful to Dr. Jaideep, who is sitting. Could you please raise up once? So he worked hard on the standards and put that chapter together. So we went for a minimal set of standards that are required to begin with. They are so huge, the health standards, mind-boggling, or one becomes crazy if you have to implement all the standards in toto. Even US with 20 years of experience, they have a staged system of implementing those standards. So instead of trying to create something big and then chisel it to a small, we started small with the minimal set. For instance, in fire, as they call it, release 4, there are 143 resources. We touched only 25 of them and forget the rest for the time being. So likewise, what are the minimal set of standards required, which every institution, every service provider has to comply. We have put it in the report as such. Last is, we have also discussed how do you identify a person with Aadhaar, without Aadhaar, keeping the regulations in view. Those things have also been addressed. I have not detailed out here because it takes more time. And what regulations are to be followed is also given here. And the institutional framework to drive it forward, the details of that have also been given in this report. What we envisage end of the day is we want to submit this report in the first week of March to the ministry. Then we will have a detailed 1 day long or so industry consultation, both health as well as IT industry. And then the input will be fed into this report so that it's richer with the, that kind of interaction. And then it will be operational sometime in April. That's what we are hoping. So this I just wanted to give a very quick, almost running agile kind of presentation as such, which is possible in 15 minutes. Hopefully this will take the country to a next higher level of digital, using of the concept of digital health in India. Thank you very much.
So, friends and colleagues, wherever I have gone in the world, everyone asks me what is Aadhaar and how a country of this size is able to give biometric-based unique identity to each and every citizen of this country. Here amongst, in the midst of us today, is the chairman of Aadhaar, and he is helping us to lead another revolution, another thought process in terms of creating this national health stack, the framework which sir has presented to all of us today. And so we are fortunate that we could hear the overall framework and how Aadhaar has brought out a national identity for every citizen. Similarly, how unique identifier for health database which we are trying to create, wherein how private sector along with the public sector will get engaged. So this framework we are in the process of designing based on your guidance. I leave the house open for maybe 1 or 2 small questions. I know there are a few of my colleagues who are present here, and as I keep saying that sir is probably the most wanted person in this hall because everyone asks me about Aadhaar all the time. So we leave it open if 1 or 2 people would like to ask any questions. Tim? Any questions?
Hello. Hi. I'm here. This corner.
Okay. Yeah.
So, sir, I have a question about when you said about health information exchange. What are the approaches which we are taking to uniquely identify the patients across the India?
Mike.
Can you get one more? Yeah, it's okay now. Can you please come again? I couldn't.
Come closer and speak.
It's not quite clear. Keep the mic little distance here.
Okay. Am I clear now?
आप आगे आ जाइए.
Okay. Yeah, please speak.
You speak.
So basically, you discussed about health information exchange in your presentation. And in health information exchange, there is a unique challenge that we have to uniquely identify all the patients of the India. So what are the approaches which you are thinking about uniquely identifying the patients of the India?
Yeah. So identification of there are two things in this. Uniquely being able to identify a patient uniquely is one aspect. Second is authenticating that person. Just like username and password are two parts in common parlance. So unique ID we have proposed here. Already it is being practiced as part of the PMJY, where already 20 million have been created as discussed in the morning. With its set of own algorithms and so on, we tried to adopt the same thing here. Second part is about authentication. Authentication ke liye, what we have done is several schemes which are funded by the government of India. For all the schemes, health related schemes funded by government of India, Aadhaar will be used for authentication as per law of the land today. For non-Aadhaar cases, that means non-governmental programs, other identities will be used, to connect up ultimately with this PHI, personal health identifier. That is the architecture we have designed here.
So Aadhaar is going to be base for this?
Aadhaar will be used for all programs funded by the government of India, which takes you across more than 60% of the population.
No, but sir, Supreme Court has
I
said
think
I don't want to discuss the legal, it's not a forum to discuss the legal aspects, right? Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, sorry, Tim Kelsey from Australia and also chair of the Global Digital Health Partnership. As Joint Secretary Agarwal knows, I've been had a huge interest in Aadhaar for a long time, so a great privilege to hear your remarks. One of the challenges, and I formerly worked in the National Health Service with colleagues here.
I think there is a lot of echo in this room.
So you can't hear?
I'm just not able to comprehend it. You're in great difficulty, I could. Yeah,
Sorry,
some
can you hear
echo
now?
problem. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Okay, so Tim Kelsey from Australia, also the chair of the Global Digital Health Partnership. I formerly worked in the National Health Service, and with colleagues behind me, I think I'd just be interested in your reflections on the one hand, government can make digital services available to people in the way you have described, but how great is the challenge of improving the digital literacy of those who are receiving these services? What strategies do you think it's necessary to put in place to ensure that these important digital assets don't worsen equity of access to healthcare or worsen the so-called digital divide in society?
Yeah, I think it's an important issue that not only do we create those services, the people should be able to consume those services effectively and benefit from those services. So it's a question of, again, digital literacy in general, and also digital health literacy, I would say, is also required to some extent. The Ministry of Information Technology has a very massive program on this front of the digital literacy. That's point number one. Point number two is that we have to make technology look so trivial in the front end to make it succeed. To overcome this challenge, we have to make it trivial. Today, Aadhaar is being used by 30 million people every day for various programs. He doesn't need to know any technology, any digital literacy. Just have your Aadhaar in your pocket, right? That's enough. Just show that or where you have to authenticate, you just put your thumb there. So it is so trivial. Even an illiterate person is getting the benefit of Aadhaar today. We have to create, while implementing this concept, we have to also take care of that. Number one, we have to educate the citizens, digital literacy. Number two, you have to make the systems trivial.
Thank you, sir. I think
It's time.
such good that we could hear from you, and all our, on behalf of all the delegates present here, let me thank you once again for the enlightening discussion on the issue of National Health Act. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.